All right, everyone, it's on or about 6:30, so I will call this meeting to order and ask everyone to please silence cell phones and other electronic devices. I'll just make sure I've already done that. Good. And we'll start with an amendment to the agenda moved by Councillor Rowley, and I'll need a seconder that Council amend the February 3rd, 2020 Council agenda by withdrawing the presentation from Sarah Tanner, Community Service Manager, Northumberland County, the County Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan Update. Is there a seconder to that? There's 3 seconders. I'll pick Councillor Bateman as our seconder. And is there any discussion? I understand that's been moved to the first meeting in March, just for everyone's information. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that the Council approve the February 3rd, 2020 Council agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest, and if so, please state the general nature thereof. Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. 10.1 and 10.2, I know our notice of motion, but I just want to declare at this time because I declared when it was brought up before and a decision was made. So I will be declaring again for that when it does come up at the next meeting, but putting on notice now. And also, I just want to state that I've never asked or received any sandbags or staff help with my eroded shoreline. So I want to, and I did that on purpose because I want to remain very neutral in all this.
So I assume the general nature is that you're a shoreline property owner. Is that correct, Councillor Tadman?
It is correct, and I do have 2 big trees that I'm very worried about, but I will not be asking the taxpayers to protect them.
Thank you. Any other declarations? None noted. Any announcements? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. A week past Wednesday, I was pleased to represent the municipality at a standing committee discussion on rural opportunity and the investment coalition hosted by MPP Piccini. This initiative is based on a very successful American program, although yet details need to be cleared up, and it yet needs to be presented to the Ministry of Finance. So could be out for a few years, but very interesting. I have a small PowerPoint presentation that I will hand over to the clerk, and maybe she can forward via electronic email to everyone.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements? Go ahead.
Last week, Thursday, I attended a Bay of Quinte Marketing Board announcement that they've launched what's called the Spark program, and basically it's for anyone who comes up with a great tourism idea for our area, and they can win $3,000. And if anyone's interested, they can check it out on the Bay of Quinte on Facebook or on their website, or they can, contact me and I can let them know.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Councillor Bateman.
I don't want to steal any thunder because you might mention it, but we didn't go down on Saturday because we had other commitments, but I thank yourself and others attended the, I don't know how many annual they've had, the Pond Hockey Classic for the Wounded Warriors, but you can speak more to that because I think you dropped the puck on the Saturday.
I did. So I'm going to start back on Tuesday, and I'm sure lots of people have already seen the announcement about the Trillium Foundation grant that Mr. Piccini came and provided to the municipality. This provides the skate park the funds we need to begin that project and finish it, hopefully in 2020. And I know that staff will be putting those tenders out in the next month or so. So looking forward to that project getting started and finished this year. That same day, the Economic Development Committee for Northumberland County and Economic Development Group for Northumberland County announced a lending loop. This is a private lending opportunity for people who are starting businesses, well, across Canada, frankly, but specifically for Northumberland County. It's available through the county's economic development website, and it's all private money. So the only tax dollars at work in this particular instance was the time to put the link and face on the website. So it's good news. Potentially a $65 million investment. That's what the investment was last year across the country for startup companies and startup investment. And I did attend the pond hockey puck drop on Saturday and Friday night. Before that, I attended the dinner and gala with some exceptional speakers in support of both Trenton Memorial Hospital Foundation and Wounded Warriors, and then had opportunity to go back Saturday morning and help drop the puck. In fairness, Mayor Harrison from Quinte West was the actual puck dropper, but it was his community, so we let Jim get away with all sorts of good things. Lots of good things happened on Saturday. Of course, our two council friends baked up a storm with just like Granny's, raising over $800 for the Beacon Youth Center. Congratulations, gentlemen. Well done. And good exposure for another downtown business as well. So thank you both for that. And after I left you, I went to Lighthouse Books, where Catherine had partnered with Redstone Embroidery Services and just showing off what two businesses in the community can do together. So that was fun as well. Are there any other announcements? Thank goodness, no. So we'll move into adoption of minutes. Moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council approve the January 13th, 2020 Council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. And a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council approve the January 15th, 2020 Council planning meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. We do not have a statutory public meeting this evening, so I will call on our first delegate. First delegation is Peter Archer regarding the conservation authorities. Mr. Archer, we allow 10 minutes for speakers at delegations. Come on up here, Pete.
There, you can hear me?
There you go.
Okay, very good. So thank you for having me tonight. So yes, I would like to speak on the conservation authorities and some of the issues that local farmers are running into, particularly with Lower Trent, but it extends over into the Quinte conservation as well. And yeah, we just seem to be running amok with them more and more all the time, and over some land clearing operations and tile drainage operations. And there is no provincial policy preventing us from clearing land, and yet we're running into them, whether it's wetland or not, and their definitions of what wetland is pretty vague. Basically, on our situation is because they found ash trees on this property is why it's a wetland, because that is a wetland species. And so, it's just gotten completely out of hand, and we need to do something about it. And so it's a timely thing right now when this Conservation Act is being looked at and being revamped, and it is why we need to support Mr. Puccini in this effort to do this and to cut the funding for this, because it's completely ridiculous when Lower Trent shows up at our farm with the OPP and spend 3 hours, on their nut and twig hunt. These guys, these OPP here, have much better things to be doing than sitting there watching them wander around our farm looking for I don't know what. So that is, our issue with them, and we need to support some cutbacks to this because it's completely unnecessary.
Thank you, Mr. Archer. Have you been in touch? I assume you've been in touch with Mr. Puccini and his office.
Yes, I have.
With the same. Okay, very well. I'll open the floor to questions of clarification from members of council. Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Mayor. And Peter, you said that MPP Puccini is supportive of cutting funds. Is that what it is for the conservation areas?
Yes, the Ford government has put that initiative forward. There was a review in Barrie last Friday. There will be another one this Friday in Peterborough, and I believe the following Friday that there'll be one in London.
Because I wasn't at the meeting, wasn't able to be there either. Could you tell me why they're cutting the funds?
Because there is deemed to be a duplication. Most of what these conservation authorities are doing is easily addressed through the planning process with the municipalities, and that's where. So there's going to be they're also reviewing the Drainage Act, where there's overlap with the Drainage Acts and the conservation authorities. They're reviewing the official plans, and so this is all being done kind of simultaneously, because there is a whole bunch of overlap in this. Basically, our problem is we have a staff issue, and Councillor Bateman and Tadman were there. We had a meeting today, a special meeting with Lower Trent today, and I think it was productive. We're going to meet with staff and try to work through our own personal issues, but I'm not near as concerned about my personal issues as what I see going on with my neighbors and whatnot, who several of them are here with me tonight. I'm not the only one with this issue. It's going on again and again, and it seems to be escalating.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Yes, you've explained that fairly well, what the question was prior. You're also talking about the mapping that's going on now with the wetlands, and that's where it's all coming together, again, with the official plans and the mapping of these areas. So there'll be areas that you can't build on, that you have to be setbacks and all these things. These are the items that you're talking about?
Well, that's certainly
So if
part
you
of
want
it.
to
It's
build,
more restrictions
if
being
you want
put
to
on what we
build
can
or
do.
you want to do anything with your land, this is a process that's with all this new mapping. It's not totally finished yet, but I think that's just coming out in March. I think that's going to be now finalized, but we'll hear more about that, I guess. But it's all tied into what you're talking about: mapping of the wetlands, forestry, forest lands.
Do you have a question, Councillor Anderson?
Well, I'm just adding to what our guest was putting forth. So,
I'm sure Mr. Archer appreciates the support.
well,
Deputy Mayor?
I think we need to understand what he's also.
Understood. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. You had mentioned the OPP getting involved. Why is it, if you can explain to me why that was the case?
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. There was, they'd already done a site meeting. I went there with 3 people and the chair, Councillor Allier from Quinte West. We went there. It was a very cordial meeting, very amicable ending to it. We agreed that they were going to go back and look at a map and try to decide what was maybe wetland, what wasn't. There was nothing, confrontational about it at all. And then they show up, a few weeks later. They got back to me and said that they had done this mapping and that this was pretty much all wetland and I had to rehabilitate it all back. This is top-notch farmland. This is the best of the best land that we have. Was it wet in there years ago? Yeah, it was wet in there years ago, but this is all a tile drain farm. And so if you're aware of it's the west side of County Road 40, just south of number 2 there. And this is top-notch farmland, and there is no policy saying that we can't clear it for farmland. There's not a provincial policy preventing us from doing it. And so basically they're saying is that we're in contravention of the law, saying that we have gone and done disturbance on this wetland. Okay, well maybe in hindsight maybe we should have had a permit, but there's no forestry bylaw when we're over in Quinte West. So we didn't think we needed a permit to touch this stuff. And anyways, now looking at this legislation, but we'd never even heard of this unevaluated wetland term that they had put on this mapping. And anyway, so that's where we run into the problem. But still, the staff should have been able to look at this and say, hey, you're right, Peter, you're right, Jim Allier, this is top-notch farmland, this should be farmed. And they were not able to do that. Instead, they suggested I turn that top-notch farmland back to woods, to trees, and they would support an application for me to clear down on the escarpment down next to Divots Excavating across the road from the elevator, that they would support an application for me to clear what is bedrock down there. It will not grow corn and soybeans. We've got some of that alongside the elevator. It won't grow anything. There's no way it'll meet cost of production. So I'm the conservationist here, because I'm the one that knows that is what it's growing what it should be growing. It's got trees on it, and that's what it should be growing.
Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc.
Yes, I know that, well, farms is our second biggest industry. So when you walk with the ministry, and I've gone with other people to help them clear their woodlots and wetlands, our temporary wetlands, and do stuff during the dry weather, and there's going to be drainage. And when you work with the Lower Trent and you work with this, usually they tell you what permits you require and what you can cut and what you can't. I haven't had a problem with them in a good number of years, and we had significant wetlands. Mine on County Road 64, they designate 10 acres of wetland. I walked them through with this new policy that they have, that they do it with satellites, and they changed it from a wetland to land that I could use. So it's just maybe a communication, or was there, that communication was one looking at one cow, one looking at the other cow, and you weren't connecting on what had to be done, and now the police get involved? Because usually they work in tangent. I haven't had a problem. I understand where your overreaching comes out and where it's come over the years, but the thing is, they usually work really well. And I've worked with a lot of companies, because I've done a lot of environmental, and I'm here to support the farms with drainage and ditching and to get that. I just went out with the Cattlemen Association 2 weekends ago in the rainstorm to look at why their fields wouldn't drain and stuff. But the Liberal government, just before they left policy, just before they did, changed a lot of the things on heritage, on mapping.
Do you have
and
a
stuff.
question, Councillor LeBlanc?
My question, it has to go with the chair, I think. Ron Anderson had the same problem. So my question to you, when you had good communication with him, were you both on the same page of being able to clear this for us?
Well, I don't think that we've been able to, to talk any common sense at all. And like I say, it just seemed like when they're sending OPP out, to look at this stuff, they're not thinking and talking rationally, in my opinion. So, when you're in that situation, there's really no point of talking to them. So my result was that I was going to go council to council and try to get the funding cut off to them. And that really was like banging the bee's nest, to be honest with you. So it's got some attention, I think positive attention, and we're moving forward, and I think it's all good.
Just one more.
I'm going to go over to Councillor Tadman, and then I'll come back to you. Councillor Tadman.
I sat on the Lower Trent board, as I stated today, Peter, and I've never heard of the police ever having to be called unless somebody's pulling a gun on the authority. So I can't understand why the police were there, but I'd like to find out more about that. And I certainly will, to see if the police actually had to be present.
The police showed up unannounced. They did not tell me they were coming. One of my buddies from Twitter notified me that they were coming. I was in the combine that day. I didn't show up. My wife went to check to see if they did have a warrant. They had a warrant. But you'll have to get your staff to explain why that happened.
And I certainly will. And a further question, as we talked today, and I think it was in a reasonable meeting, and you have agreed to meet with staff to work out some solution, because as we all said, and I've experienced it over the years, they don't want to take people to court. They want to work out a situation that is best for everybody under the rules. And the rules were, again, suggested today, what their mandate is from the province. Now, if the province changes those rules, they're the authority. But the Lower Trent has to go by the mandate of the province, as you understand and know.
Yes, and again, there is no mandate to prevent us from clearing land. Whether it is wetland or not, you check that. M&R will tell you that there is no policy to prevent us from clearing land. We did disturb this wetland. Yes, we should have had a permit. I'm not questioning that. Looking at in hindsight, looking at it now, before I didn't think I needed a permit. Now I think, yeah, I should have had a permit for it, and I will admit that. But they should have come and looked at it and said, yes, this is top-notch farmland here. you can go ahead and clear this. And that didn't happen.
I'm going to go back over to Councillor LeBlanc, and then I'll come back. Councillor LeBlanc?
So, from the drift of your answer, sir, and the way you were talking, you decided to kick the hornet's nest because you didn't have a permit. You went to the Ministry of Forest, and you decided you could clear it, and it's top-notch farmland. So you decided to do that, and now you realize on hindsight that you needed a permit, which is what I've done, what we've done. I've done in the past with a lot of the people that I've worked with, and we've cleared complete forests and drained swamps. So now that you see this, you feel that you should have got a permit and had a little bit more discussion with them, and then the police probably wouldn't have called. But you did kick the hornet's nest. You got what you wanted.
No, I kicked the hornet's nest after the fact.
Okay.
After the fact, way after the fact. Then in December, this all happened. September, October is when this was all happening.
Okay, then. I understand you.
Councillor Cadman?
I've talked too much.
Somebody write that down.
Okay, then I take that back.
My fault.
Peter, I think we assured you that staff want to talk to you to make some kind of an agreement to get this, without going to court and everything else. And I think you've agreed, and I know you've agreed to meet with them, and I don't know when the
we have a meeting Thursday at 11 a.m.
Good. So considering that that's going to happen, I don't know that we need to sit here and talk any more about this, but I know that the CAO from Lower Trent is here, and you're going to meet with her on Thursday. So maybe Mayor, the delegation, he's done his delegation, maybe we should move on?
I think we will. I just wanted to mention, and for council's information as well, I was asked to sign off on the Lower Trent's billing request, which included the additional amount for 2020. I don't have budgetary approval to do that. We're still in the middle of budget talk, so I have not signed off on the Lower Trent's funding. I just think that council needs to provide approval before I do that. So in no way punitive, but there are rules, and one of the rules is I shouldn't be writing or signing off on checks that I'm not authorized by council to do so for. And there's certainly lots of chatter about conservation authorities out in the public spaces and with the ministries, and certainly from folks like you too, Peter. So I'll thank you very much. And with that, I'll provide a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council receive the delegation from Peter Archer regarding conservation authorities. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Pete.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is Inspector Brian O'Halloran, Northumberland County Detachment Commander, OPP, presenting on the police services contract. Inspector?
Thank you. I'm going to let Catherine introduce herself and talk about who is my expert.
There you go. Well, come on. Well, why don't you both come up here, just in case we want to grill the inspector, too. Brian, you can just wheel that around if you want. Yeah. And Catherine, I missed your last name.
It's Ross, R-O-S-S.
Is it Catherine with a K?
It is.
Thank you. And we have a very technical system here. Inspector, if you could flip up that white piece of paper in front of you. There you go. Look at that. Okay, we're going to hire you for our IT expert next. Yeah.
You won't get much IT then.
It's about all we know.
That's about it.
Okay.
So welcome.
Thank you.
Go right ahead. Just for council's information, I've been informed that this could be a 20-minute presentation, give or take. So I'm not going to ask for a suspension of the procedural bylaw. I think we all get that this is we asked for this presentation. So thank you very much and welcome to Brighton.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, and ladies and gentlemen of the gallery. So my name is Catherine Ross. I'm pleased to be here today to provide an overview of the OPP billing model, as well as to briefly explain Brighton's billing statement. So just a very short introduction. I'm a sergeant. I work with the Municipal Policing Bureau out of Orillia. with the OPP. I'm currently in my 17th year of policing and have served as a frontline constable for 10 of those years and 7 of those in specialty services. Currently, my role is here with Municipal Policing Bureau as a contract analyst. So our bureau is primarily responsible for contracts and amalgamations. Just to slightly build on that, we respond to requests made by municipalities to the Minister of the Solicitor General for costing proposals. We develop OPP municipal policing contracts. We also oversee the transition process in those circumstances where municipal police services disband and the OPP assumes responsibility for providing policing services. Where's my IT expert?
Wait, I just what? I'm done. That's my technology.
Not
I'm done.
bad. So, yeah. This looks much better. That's. Oh, it's not changing on here. So what, mouse is fine, or did you press a different button? Arrows. Just the arrows? Okay, great. All worked out. So just to give a quick outline on what I'll speak about is, first point's the OPP annual expenditures. I'll speak about the billing model itself, the OPP municipal policing cost breakdown for the municipality of Brighton, the OPP contract renewal process, as well as just a brief slide on the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019. Additionally to what you see here on the outline is I'll also speak to contract enhancements or enhancement officers as well, a high-level overview. Great. So this slide is showing the OPP total actual 2018-2019 expenditures. And just a brief note on that, it is based on a fiscal year. So these figures are based on OPP reconciled costs for 2018-19 actuals. So this chart provides an illustration of where the money is allocated to and what services the OPP provides. So looking at the provincial specialized responsibility section, 64% make up our mandated provincial responsibilities. These include areas such as traffic safety, investigations, intelligence, and specialized response teams. Under the municipal police resources section, 35% of the total make up the costs for municipal policing that are recovered from municipalities, which include frontline detachment staff and support positions that are required to meet service demands. So what's important to note, and I will bring this point up later, is that municipalities are billed for the portion of detachment and support positions required to meet their service demands. So this slide is showing in charts and pictures key notable points in the creation and the implementation of the billing model. So municipalities policed by the OPP fall into one of two categories. Either they have a formal contract as per Section 10 of the Police Services Act, or there is no contract, and policing services are provided under Section 5.1 of the Act. Prior to 2014, the method of billing for each of these categories was different. It was complicated, it was difficult to explain, and based on many complicated measures. It also led to a wide disparity of policing costs throughout the province of Ontario. Some municipalities were paying less than $50 a household for policing, while others were paying well over $800 a household. So this diagram depicts the development of the model. It has deep roots in engagement sessions and consultations with ministries, agencies, associations, and with the municipalities we serve. To my left, the diagram to my left, in each line represents a municipality and how much they were paying in 2014 prior to the model, dollars being the scale from top to bottom. You can see the gap or the disparity has been addressed through the implementation of the billing model in 2015. So to address the point of transparency, New reports have been created to share with municipalities specific to their billing. Annually, we hold webinars when the statements are distributed to explain them, and we go out and do presentations and explanations at the request of the municipalities, just as we're here tonight, and we post a plethora of information on opp.ca for public access. So the billing model is provincially focused. So this means it focuses on all municipal policing the OPP does within the province. So we recover costs from each municipality for services provided. These costs are estimated in a prepared statement provided in the fall prior to the billing year, and then reconciled once the year of service is completed. So for example, for 2020 billing, our municipalities will have received their statements this past fall, 2019, and the reconciliation of certain billing components will be reconciled in 2021 when the year has been completed. So our model divides the majority of policing costs into two categories. So you see up there base services and calls for service. The base service is how we achieve the equitable share for policing services. It is a per property cost that municipalities pay based on the number of properties in their boundaries. This rate is the same for all OPP police municipalities. That is on impact data, and that is revamped annually. So activity that is covered in base service costs include legislated requirements, proactive policing, training, administration, and supervision. I've heard others refer to it as the bricks and mortar of policing, and that helped me to put it into context. The second category, or calls for service, is specific to each municipality. It is allocated based on individual usage level. So a municipality that has more calls for service will pay more in this area than one with fewer calls for service. So while base and calls for service are the two main categories in the billing, there are some additional costs that are recovered for. These costs may or may not be applicable for each municipality. So for example, if a municipality provides facilities for the OPP to work from, they will not be billed accommodation costs. However, if the OPP are policing a municipality from their provincial detachment, then the municipality will be charged a fee for accommodation costs. Another example would be court security, and this would only apply to municipalities with a courthouse and not those without a courthouse. So what this slide is showing is the total cost recovery breakdown for 2020. So for those base services that I just spoke of and explained, we are recovering 210 million. So on an equal per property basis, it works out to 183.23 per property. And like I mentioned, that's the 2020 cost. The next category is calls for service. We are recovering 162 million, and it's charged to municipalities according to their specific usage. And that is a percentage of our total calls for service cost. The other costs we see at the top are 38 million, and they are allocated directly to the municipalities based on your contract arrangements. So such things as I was mentioning, overtime, court security, prisoner transportation, accommodation and cleaning, and then enhancements as well. And of course, our total is presented on the left at 411 million. All right, just a quick explanation of this slide for the municipality of Brighton. Before I explain it, I'll draw your attention to the before cap cost on the far right. Please disregard that. I caught that error this evening reviewing this, and the cap does not apply to Brighton, so unless there's an explanation needed, I'll move past that. That's your actual Brighton cost. This represents trends since 2015. So the chart outlines a comparison of per property costs, including base, calls for service, and other costs, between Brighton, which is seen by the green bar, and the provincial average, which is represented by the blue bar. So Brighton has been below the provincial average since 2015. There was a slight fluctuation between 2016 and 2018, while your 2019 and your projected 2020 costs are approximately the same. It just helps to give it a bit of a context. All right, so moving on to the specific annual billing statement for Brighton. It provides basically your breakdown of costs. So I'm just going to take just a moment to go through it. So on the far left, you see base services, the property counts, which I refer to as MPAC data assessed annually. So it includes household and commercial for your total property count. We break it down to a cost per property and a total cost of just over $1 million when it comes to your base service cost. When we get into the calls for service section, again, I mentioned it was provincially focused. So we take the large provincial number represented on the top line. We provide a percentage, which is your specific municipal portion. We break it down into a cost per property and a total cost. You can see it's representative of approximately $726,000. There is an overtime budget line as well, prisoner transportation, which is exactly the same per property cost among all properties in the province, accommodation and cleaning, and then your total 2020 estimated costs. You'll see on the following lines. You'll also see a 2018 year-end adjustment. That would be reflective of primarily there was a additional over the estimated cost, mostly on overtime, for your grand total. One point I'd like to make when it comes to overtime is that every possible effort is made to reduce or to not incur overtime. Overtime needs to be authorized by a supervisor, therefore it is not up to the individual officer to assess. So just a piece on overtime there. But of course, in our business, we can't always plan for these things, so it is true to the nature of our work. So just a brief note here on Community Safety and Policing Act 2019. We've had a lot of questions surface from our municipalities. So basically what's going to happen that we do know before the regulations are written is that there won't be any contracts. So it's going to eliminate the distinction between a Section 10 and a Section 5.1 municipalities. So provisions for the OPP to provide enhancements, of course, at an extra cost, which I'll speak to here in subsequent slides, under established agreements. So all municipalities will have an opportunity to explore the option of an enhancement, even if they're not a Section 10 contract. So municipalities have two main choices. They can continue to be policed by the OPP and become part of an OPP detachment board. So basically it'll be in place of a police services board, and we can't speak to the structure of that yet as the ministry is still defining that. Or municipalities can choose to form a municipal board or amalgamate boards, enter into an agreement with another municipal board, etc., to have municipal board provide police responsibility. So what this wordy paragraph is saying is that if you were with a municipal or a regional service, it would be a municipal board that would provide governance, is basically what that is saying. So just moving on to enhancement police officers. So municipalities currently under a Section 10 contract that choose to use the services of an enhancement police officer or to basically apply or ask for one, what they are for is they are for a dedicated and a specific purpose in consultation with the detachment commander. Most municipalities use them in a CSO or community service officer capacity or for traffic enforcement. Must be officially requested in writing to the from the municipality to the municipal, so to our bureau. The cost of the enhancement is the sole responsibility of the municipality. So what's important to note is that the position is attached to hours and not necessarily a person. So what we're reaching for is 1,417 hours of service. So it's not necessarily dedicated to a person. So an approximate cost in 2020 of a uniform enhancement is approximately $178,000. So the cost that you're seeing here on the slide is representative of a new position being assigned. So once this position or person is established, the cost is less for subsequent years. So for example, if this was a second year of an enhancement contract for 2020, the cost for that enhancement would be approximately $171,000. There is a cost associated with adding a new position if it was a new constable or a new officer based on setup requirements, uniform, use of force costs, etc. So that's why you're seeing the price difference variation. So this is a busy slide. I apologize for that. This is a cost breakdown for an enhancement officer. So the reason I've chose to include this is just to show the detailed cost breakdown the municipality would receive if they chose to add an enhancement position. So this is reflective of the transparency of our processes and of our costs. The majority of the cost of this position, as you would expect, is salary and benefits, followed by support staff and related other direct operating expenses. So I hope that this presentation this evening has been informative and helpful. Please do not hesitate to contact me with any questions moving forward or any questions that you have here tonight. This is the general contact information for our bureau, and I'm happy to leave business cards as well. Just a very side note as well, the analysts are categorized by region. Your normal analyst is Miss Linda Davis, who sends her regrets she couldn't be here tonight. But anyone in our bureau is happy to look into any questions your municipality may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Ross. Appreciate your time and your information. Primarily, I think we asked you here to talk about service enhancement, and I think that there may be some questions around that, although I saw some wide eyes making me wonder if the question about service enhancement might go away, but we'll see what happens. But there may be other questions that from interest peaked during the conversation, so I'll go over to Councillor LeBlanc.
Thank you, through your chair. On your officer enhancement, you said it was $178,000 for a half year, right? Because it's 2,020 hours for a full year.
No.
Full year work.
1 year.
417 hours of the year.
27 hours.
That's a year, but usually in a workforce, because I am an employer, usually it's 2,220 hours for a full year, 40 hours a week. 52 weeks a year, you'll come up with that. So you said 1,144 and 14 hours. So that's like a half year.
Okay, we're going to let them answer the question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So the enhancement position is quoted in a full year. If the detachment was to gain, so if you requested an enhancement and they started throughout the year, there would be it would be prorated. But what I'm giving you is the figure for a full year. And we have an availability factor, so we deduct hours based on stat, holidays, and training, and admin, and certain working components that we actually deduct. So this is your actual service level of 1,417 hours for that calendar year. And it is broken down and specified on the billing statement that the municipality receives yearly. Does that answer your question, Councillor LeBlanc?
Not really, no. But it's good.
Could you restate it?
27 hours a week.
Yes, that's 27 hours a week, yeah. So the other thing is, when you talked about the enhancement, you also said it came with support. I thought in the original price of $1.9 million, there's support and everything in there because you work out to $160 an hour for that cost. But you also in there, you have support and everything. I thought support for that officer, wouldn't it already be there with that $1.9 million we're already prepaying?
So the support is calculated per officer, and so that's how the financial breakdown works, is that every officer needs to be able to connect with Comm Center. They need the radio to do their job. So again, we could definitely have a conversation or by email if we needed a further breakdown. Our financial experts come up with those costs and those formulas. So that is the other pillar of our bureau that would be able to delve into those really weeds questions when it comes to the financial
That's good.
portion.
Thank you.
Councillor Tadman.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, great presentation, easy to understand.
Thank you.
But could you do us, people with a little bit of eyesight problems, enlarge this?
Yeah.
I couldn't see most of it. Good thing you had it up there. But this isn't our first rodeo, and I know that some members on council think maybe we should look to other policing. The mayor, I know, has been around for a long time. He's almost as old as me. He doesn't look it, but he is.
I'm almost as old as your daughter. Carry on.
Anyways, okay, I'm old enough to be your mother, so
You are.
listen to
Move
me.
on.
But we've always got good service from the OP, and I thank you for that.
Hear,
And the enhanced service is only if we're really, I think, this is me personally speaking, if we really have a problem. And I think for the most part, we're well policed here in Brighton. Sure, we have the odd vandalism, we have the odd whatever. I'm not going to bring that up right now. But for the most part, I don't think we need any more than the base service. And so, thank you. And that's all I will say for now.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman. Councillor Anderson.
May I make a slight comment for Councillor Tadman?
Sure.
I would encourage you, if you are considering an enhancement, to reach out to other municipalities that do have enhancements, asking them reasons why they have them. It's very individualized, and that dedicated specifics, some municipalities feel that they would like a full-time dedicated school resource officer or someone on a highway between the hours of 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. to kind of counter some things that they're seeing in their community. And once they've analyzed their needs, then they would move forward with that position. So I hope that helps. You're welcome.
Sergeant Ross, could you send some municipality information about municipalities with enhanced service to the clerk's office?
Certainly.
And then we can have a more intelligent conversation around that particular process.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
I can.
Councillor Anderson?
Thank you, Mayor. I think you've done a good job in the past years, as long as I've lived here anyhow. But the thing that's really been irritating me in the last while, for the last couple of years, as well as I'm hearing from a number of residents that we talk about, you don't see an office, you don't see a cruiser, you don't see, well, you can't be everywhere at every time, you can't be looking out your window every 2 minutes, I know that. But I think there is some validity to that. We are experiencing some problems. It goes in peaks and valleys. I know you can go a couple of years, no problem. All of a sudden, we're getting some action here in town. And you did some great work today. I read about solving a situation that happened here. And it's in the news, so, but I won't go on about that. My question is, do we need enhancement? Perhaps we're missing something. A lot of your platoons, they spend a lot of time on the 401. It's because of accidents. They're doing a pretty good job now of patrolling the 401.
I can expand on that in relation to the 401. Most of the officers in Brighton stay within the municipality of Brighton or the surrounding municipalities, because we have different zones, but one zone would be Brighton. We have officers dedicated to the 401 out of our provincial budget.
Okay.
So that takes up most of their time. Don't get me wrong, if there's a snowstorm or a major accident, the officers will be dispatched up there to assist. But most of the officers that are assigned to the Brighton area or the neighboring Coburn area will stay within the municipality as much as required unless needed elsewhere.
So this
the
is
401 really isn't a huge factor for Brighton. Again, unless there's a huge snowstorm or an accident, we have to give them support for the other units.
anyway.
In fairness, all emergency services would be out there at that point, including Brighton Fire, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I know Quinte West has what, 8 new officers and cruisers, and they're doing a great job now to control that section of the highway. So what you say is probably correct. It's stepped up now a little bit.
Well, that's a different municipality than us.
No, but
And theirs are
it's same
funding models.
Same people.
Funding models.
But my point is,
And they have a giant New York station.
do we have enough, an enhancement would mean, do we have enough patrolling officers that can monitor and enforce speeding and other infractions in town? Is there enough drive around that people, like when people are breaking into houses, people are doing things at night, but they're doing it in the middle of the day now. Is there enough presence? I don't know how many officers you have for urban Brighton during the day, but...
Well, the platoons are staffed at the same amount of level throughout, and we always take public safety and security as our number one factor. But what we look at is when we patrol, I always say, you don't see the police car because they're all patrolling, right? Or they're all doing other things. And the only time you see a police car is usually when you're speeding and we come up behind you and we pull you over. But to say we're not out there, that's untrue. We're out there just as much during the daytime as in the nighttime. And if you look at statistics over numerous years, there's more breaking in during daytime hours than there are nighttime hours. But for enhancements, that's up to you as a municipality. Me as the task commander, I think we do a lot here in Brighton. Myself and my staff sergeant Jeff Martin, we look daily at our operations, where we want to put our people, where we always look at different aspects that we can bring into each municipality to ensure that we cover extra duties. Some of the things we're looking at now is part-time policing. And part of the part-time policing is we bring back retired officers to work on some of our initiatives, i.e. traffic complaints in certain municipalities, the red lights, traffic lights, marine, bicycle patrol, foot patrol, that allow more time for our full-time officers to stay in the municipality and not be required to do some of those byproducts, as I like to say.
And one more thing, Mayor. We are a growing community, and now we're into a 5-year contract, right? So I'm thinking about the future too, not just tonight. I'm talking about as we grow and urban sprawl happens, it makes your job a little tougher, and people come into the community that we don't necessarily. I'm not talking about the ones spending $700,000 for a house. I'm talking about the ones that want to come in here and cause trouble. So, is there enough? We can talk increasing enhancements later. I know we can talk next year or whatever, but I'm just setting the groundwork. Are we doing enough now for enforcement and that to regulate what's going on with the number of complaints that seems to be floating around with?
Well,
are we blitzing speeding? Are we looking at areas? I know you're doing right now. You've probably got some concerns that you are specializing looking at, but
well, I will talk to one is that I know we brought up the police services board meeting is vandalism. With vandalism, we had dedicated patrols through Brighton, but as soon as they see us coming, they disappear for 15, 20 minutes, and then they come back.
Yeah.
And,
lots of
and we
places.
can't have a police officer stay at the park for 24 hours because you're just going to it'd just be unreasonable. So we try to do different aspects. We try to get the community involved. We put out news blasts. So we try to get the community. It's really the communities are the police just as much as we are. And so we try to get people to let us know when the times occur and what's happening to call us, right? Because that's when we're more effective, is when we get those calls. Just to patrol, the kids will disappear for 10 or 15 minutes in the back.
Okay.
And again, we try to do our best with what we have, and I think we as an agency are doing quite well here in Brighton. I'm very proud of the manpower we put here. I think it's one of our, if you look at the size of the municipality within Northumberland County, it's the second largest. And I think, if you look at crime, it's been on a reduction over the last year or two.
Well, that's good. That's
So,
what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear that. So
For enhancements, it's something that you and your citizens will determine. But as your community grows and the billing model, well, then what will happen is you'll be charged more. At that time, we look at our staff levels within Northumberland County, and we may be bringing in more offices to accommodate. And I'm sure in the future, as Brighton is growing, that your bill will go up and we'll get more offices to the attachment.
So based on the funding model that we have with the OPP, as the community grows, so too will our OPP resources by virtue of the fact that we're paying more.
Yes.
Yeah. That's right.
What that is, I don't know because until
You don't determine that either, do you? No.
I could just make one quick comment on that, just for clarity purposes. So our staffing is based on workload. So just because a municipality grows doesn't necessarily mean that the policing workload grows. So that's when I was mentioning that the billing is based on your unique service delivery. Our officers enter in where they work and how long they work there so that we're able to analyze that data. And we also look at your calls for service. The proactive stuff is not, so the inspector was speaking on, dedicated patrols around potential, entries into buildings during the day is included in your base service cost. So I'll just, if hopefully that provides a little bit of clarity to those points. Anything else, Inspector?
Councillor Bateman?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to thank you for your presentation, and I agree with a lot of the points made tonight. I don't think any amount of or level of policing is going to eliminate all break-and-enters. I'm preaching to the choir, you know that. You could triple our force, and you're still going to have B&Es, you're still going to have vandalism. So I think you're doing a good job. The vandalism part, I honestly think that begins at home. I think our parents need to police their kids a little better, and that will be eliminated.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Councillor Tadman?
Thank you. I know Councillor Anderson did not mean that people that come in here and buy $700,000 homes are the only ones that don't commit to things that are against. But I know that you didn't mean that because somebody could come in here and rent a low-income house and be more innocent than the 700,000. We don't judge our residents, and I know you didn't mean that.
What I meant, though, was we don't need to attract, because when you have a great community like we have, it can attract an element that you don't want, too, that are not necessarily moving here. They're coming here. They're looking for opportunities, not necessarily to live here. And correct me if I'm wrong.
That's in any community. Right?
That's right, but you see other communities that's happening.
Well, that you can't control. One of the problems with the tunnel is the 401, right? So, we look at a lot of our break-and-enters or thefts out of cars. Well, we as a community, we are very trusted here in Northumberland County, and we leave car doors open, house doors open, and that's the message we try to get to the community is that you're also the part of the policing, is that you have to lock your doors to cars, because these people come in our communities realize that we don't lock doors to cars and houses, so it makes our work a lot harder.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Councillor Tadman?
Thank you. And also, I think as a resident, as a councillor, as a person living in this area, if you see something, say something. Because, we all love our town and we want the best for the town. And I don't ever want to think that nobody's welcome here and to misjudge people for the wrong reasons is not right either. So if you see something that's wrong, you should go. Yeah, and that, not to be a rat, but to if it's something that you're concerned that's going on in the community.
Any other questions? Well, thank you both very much. I appreciate you taking your time this evening to come and give us a refresher on policing costs and billing, and to offer us some information on what it would cost if we went down the enhancement road. So I will appreciate you giving some information to the clerk's office so we can take a look at who is taking advantage of enhancements and what we might like to look at or not, as the case may be. We'll see how that goes. Thank you.
Certainly. I'll forward that as soon as I'm able to.
Appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council receive the presentation from OPP Inspector Brian O'Halloran, Detachment Commander, Northumberland County, and with your permission, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Rowley, I'm going to add, and Sergeant Catherine Ross, OPP Policing Bureau. Is that okay? Anything further? All those in favor? Go ahead.
Thank you, and it would just be on the enhancement policing that we just spoke about. Mayor, that you brought it up, and I don't know, is it something that maybe we could earmark at budget time just to have a look at if we get information?
So once the clerk's office gets the information from Sergeant Ross, then we can decide what to do with that information and how to reach out to those other communities. It might just be an email from my office to the local mayor just to see what they're doing. That might be I don't know what, but we'll decide how we want to reach out, and I think we'll take a look at that. We can talk about it operationally at budget, and maybe we should. My suggestion would be that we do some investigation over the course of 2020 and see what we want to do for 2021, but I'd leave that up to council to decide.
That would probably be better, because I don't expect that we would get it soon enough now to finish deliberations here, but the same thing, if we could earmark it for maybe next year.
My understanding from the conversation, and I'll look for a head nod or a head shake over here, is that we could ask for the enhancement at any time, and the billing would be prorated. So that understanding seems to be correct. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you again very much. Just the one citizen's comment, Madam Clerk? I just have one here, yeah. So we do have one citizen's comment from Rhonda Bateman, CAO, Lower Trent Conservation Authority. The comment is going to be based on the scheduled delegation. One assumes that means Pete Archer. Confirmation of the mandate of Lower Trent Conservation Authority. So CAO Bateman, you have 2 minutes to make your citizen's comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to follow up on some earlier comments. I'd like to start by saying that Lower Trent Conservation applies its provincial regulations across the watershed, and they're applied fairly and equally across the watershed. The regulations are provincially mandated and are part of our core mandate platform that the province continues to push forward. The regulations are in place, and they're applied to homeowners, landowners, builders, and farmers all equally. So I'm not going to repeat about Mr. Archer said we did have a meeting today. It went well, and we're going to continue discussions on Thursday. One of the questions that came up was about having a police escort for our staff. We had a warrant to serve, a search warrant, and according to the rules, we had OPP in attendance with our staff to do that. So it wasn't anything untoward. I don't want to talk too much about this in particular because we're still in discussions with Mr. Archer. And as Mr. LeBlanc had said, Councillor LeBlanc had said, we are always trying to make it as easy as possible for people to go through the application process to get permits. We believe that the key to success for a remedy to be found is having open dialogue with our staff. And we encourage people to come in if they ever have any questions. We have a mapping protocol online. People can, if they see a little green blob on their property, they're advised to come and see us. It may not be anything. It might be these unevaluated wetlands, and I'll use it. It means they're not evaluated. We go out, and when we have something like that, we will go and do a site visit to see if it is a wetland. We do our evaluation. We have a wetland evaluator in-house as well. So we believe that most people are willing to live within the regulations when they realize there are regulations. And many people are surprised to find out that their property may be regulated to some extent, whether it be a ravine or erosion issues or wetlands or former waterways and that sort of thing.
CEO Bateman, I'll get you to wrap up your comments.
All right, thank you. So I'm just going to say again that we work very hard in preventing violations from proceeding to court, and we want to work well with everybody and our municipal partners to see that's done.
Thank you very much. I'll need a motion to accept the citizen's comment from February 3rd, 2020. It's moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I've just written it on the form and signed the form. Very well. So move into staff reports. As soon as I get it back up on my iPad here. Our first report is with regard to Water Ontario Regulations 45307 Financial Plan. Mr. Castleman, we've read the director's report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Part of staff's role is to ensure that we're compliant with legislation. And as you all know, legislation changes from time to time. And what we're doing is we're updating our water financial plan from 2017 to comply with the new regulations as outlined in 45307. I think it's as simple as that. Part of our mandate is to ensure legislative compliance.
Thank you, Mr. Castleman. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council approve the Water Ontario Regulation 45307 Financial Plan dated January 13th, 2020. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. The second report is with regard to the changes to the Drinking Water Quality Management System Operations Plan. Mr. Parkinson, we've read Ms. Skopelianis's report. Did I say her name almost right? Yes. Good enough. Please apologize to her for my... do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council endorse the cumulative changes to the Drinking Water Management System Operation Plan. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. I just have one question. When I read the org chart as well, the QMS representative, is that a person that we have here on staff, or is that someone that that just oversees this once in a while?
Mr. Parkinson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's a contracted services through Peterborough Utilities Group, and it's just a part-time service that she helps us with our DWQMS only.
So Patricia is the QMS representative?
Yes,
okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor LeBlanc? No. Anyone else? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. The next report is with regard to the design, tendering, and project management for council chamber technology and building security. Madam Clerk, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council receive the staff report regarding design, tendering, and project management for council chamber technology and building security, and further that Council enter into an agreement with IT Navigator for the design, tendering, and project management services for the following projects. Council chamber technology upgrades, including audio, visual, and live streaming of meetings, and security system upgrades at 35 Alice Street, including security camera installation and monitoring and swipe cards. Is there any discussion? Councillor LeBlanc.
Who do I ask this to see it, to the clerk?
You ask me. You ask me, sir.
To you, Mayor. Is on one of the budget items that we had was 60,000 for live streaming our meetings in there. Is this part of that 60,000 to live stream our meetings?
I believe it is, Madam Clerk. Yes, it is. Clerk is indicating that it is.
Do you feel it's something we require through you, Chair?
Ask again. I didn't hear your question.
Is it something that we require to live stream our meetings? They have an audio they can listen to.
It is part of our strategic plan. It has been asked for in the community before. We have done it in the past, but not terribly successfully. We didn't get a lot of uptake, I understand, during the live streaming attempt, but it is 2020, and I think people kind of expect it. Go ahead. Deputy Mayor?
There's more to this. We see, how hard it is for people to do presentations here. My iPad doesn't work in this room half the time. There's lots of different things that we need to look at. It's a big picture here that we need to get corrected.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman.
And as much as I hate being on camera, and I really didn't see the necessity of live stream, it was a commitment made, and I think we have to follow through with it.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman. Councillor Rowley?
Thank you, Mayor. I understand this too being part of this new modernization grant that we got, right? I know that we're also looking at upgrading our IT. Will this all then be compatible with that? Are we doing this and then later have to kind of patch and plug in when we do fix the whole internet service that we have here?
Mr. Castleman?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It is a coordinated approach. As you know, we brought forward a number of different initiatives to tackle modernization of our IT services in the 2020 budget. We've also applied for some OSIF funding, not OSIF funding. We've applied for round 2 of the modernization program to develop an IT master plan. And that application went in early November, and we've not heard the results of that application as of yet. So time will tell.
This will all be part of that whole package if we get it together.
Absolutely. What we want to do firstly is what's the game plan? What are we trying to accomplish? And then pick away at it over time and as money and resources become available.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Bateman?
I just want to clarify, that 60,000 was coming out of the modernization fund already, correct?
All of what you see here is part of that modernization funding.
Okay. And just to follow up, I don't believe Councillor Tadman when she says she doesn't want to be on TV.
I believe she said she was worried about what she'd look like on TV, and I can assure you, Councillor Tadman, you're going to look marvelous.
Don't worry about what I look like, because I'm always looking smashing. It's just I don't like the camera.
All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Get ready for your close-up, Councillor Tadman. Our next report is with regard to the rate of speed bylaw. Mr. McGee, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing to add at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council received the report dated February 3rd, 2020, being a bylaw to regulate speed limits on specific municipal roads, and the Council passes a resolution to amend the rate of speed bylaw schedule for Brighton, Crammy, Boundary Road, and Elizabeth Street. Is there any discussion? Have we had discussion with Crammy Township?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I have. I've spoken with the roads manager with Crammy, and they're also bringing forth the bylaw to reduce the speed on.
So their staff are in favor of this?
Yes, they are.
Is this just intended to make it harder and slower for me to get to downtown, or no? I'm kidding. I'm just joking. Don't answer that question. We don't care. No, I know you don't care. As former Councillor Dorland once said, when all the rates of speed were being lowered on 30, I'm going to have to pack a lunch to come to council. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Our next staff report is with regard to parking control bylaw, accessible parking on Russell Street. Mr. McGee, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council receive the staff report dated February 3rd, 2020, parking control bylaw, accessible parking on Russell Street, and further the Council amends Schedule Number 2 of the parking bylaw 126-2016 to provide more accessible parking spaces on Russell Street. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Rowley.
I did just a little question, looking at the diagram, the picture that you sent. It looks like they're going to be kind of encroaching onto the church property as well, or is that just the way the picture looks? Are we kind of going, like we're not putting it all on the street, we're going to use off-street a little bit?
Mr. Parkinson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, they're all on the road allowance. So that it was done as part of the Russell Street reconstruction, and they're all contained within the property of the municipality. It's utilizing the property that's already there. Yeah.
Is this to accommodate the church?
Primarily, yes, but in general, they had parking issues over there.
Right.
So in meeting with Father Reynolds, the need came because that's where his accessibility people were parking as it is, and we didn't want them to wreck the little paved boulevard we were going to put, so we extended it. And they're also going to put a connecting sidewalk from their property to the accessible to get them into the front of the church.
Makes total sense to me. You're right, yeah.
I want to say, yes, it makes sense now if that's the way they're going to do it. I was just thinking, having driven on Russell, that street never looked wide enough for parking spaces right there, but...
Question wasn't intended as a criticism of your question. I just,
Right.
we wouldn't just throw accessible parking spots just anywhere.
Right.
This is a building used by members of the public, and one would think that the demographic of that organization is not dissimilar to other similar organizations in the community that may require accessible parking.
Right.
Right.
And it's nice to see that the church will also kind of work with us
100%.
and make the side.
Anything further? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. We have two notices of motion this evening, and they will be read as motions at the next regular meeting of council, moved by Mayor Brian Ostrander, seconded by Councillor Ron Anderson, whereas the municipality of Brighton has experienced significant flooding events as a result of 2017 and 2019 high Lake Ontario water levels, and whereas the high Lake Ontario water levels impacted municipal infrastructure, and whereas much of Brighton's shoreline is residentially developed, and whereas the water levels in Lake Ontario are regulated by an international body, and whereas financial assistance has not been provided to Brighton to assist the municipal impacts, nor for the municipality to allocate resources to assist private landowners, now therefore be it resolved that the municipality of Brighton Council directs staff to seek legal advice to begin the process of finding out what litigation processes the municipality may undertake, and further that the staff be directed to find a law firm suitable for this purpose, and further that staff and the solicitor be directed to provide information from both a corporate perspective, a perspective that may involve private landowners, and a regional partnership perspective. And the second notice of motion is moved by Mayor Brian Ostrander, seconded by Councillor Emily Rowley, whereas the municipality of Brighton experienced significant flooding events in 2017 and 2019 as a result of high Lake Ontario water levels, and whereas the municipality of Brighton has limited staff and financial resources, and whereas the municipality, as a result of limited resources, developed a policy to provide materials, sand and bags, in the event of another high water level event, but no human resource assistance, and whereas the water levels in Lake Ontario are managed by an international organization, and whereas much of the Brighton shoreline is residentially developed, and whereas the average age of the residents of the municipality of Brighton is older than the average age across the province of Ontario, and whereas the shoreline residents are requesting human resource assistance during another high water event, now therefore be it resolved that the municipality of Brighton Council directs staff to provide a cost estimate for the hiring of a flood mitigation response professional or team to aid with staff and volunteer coordination to assist residents who may be at risk of flooding, and further that council authorize the mayor to seek funding from upper levels of government to assist with this process. And those will be read as motions at the next regular meeting. And there's no unfinished business, so we'll move straight into bylaws. First bylaw is to enter into an agreement with IT Navigator, and it's moved by Councillor Tadman and seconded by Councillor Bateman that council gives a bylaw. Its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement for the design, tendering, and project management services for council chamber technology and security system upgrades for 35 Alice Street between the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton and IT Navigator. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. Councillor LeBlanc? Did you say something?
So I just said I guess I'm looking at TV.
Oh, I see. Well, hopefully it's not candid camera. That's all I have to say about that. Our next bylaw is with regard to medical services agreement with Dr. Gao, moved by Councillor Tadman, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between Dr. Aaron Gao and the municipality of Brighton regarding the provision of additional medical services through the use of a nurse practitioner. Is there any discussion? Councillor Tadman.
Thank you. I think this is very encouraging and relieves the worry that a lot of our patients, especially those who need their prescription on a regular basis, and a nurse practitioner can do that job. So I hope we don't have a report here that it's going to go in the paper, but I do hope that we get it on the radio, at least on my FM and Quinte News. Because I know a number of people that have asked me lots of times, and they're very stressed out that, there's one couple has to go to Oshawa to get their prescriptions filled. So as many people as we can let know, I think that's a good thing, and reassure them that we are working towards getting more doctors, but in the meantime, we will have our first nurse, our new nurse practitioner, not our first.
Thank you, Councillor Tadman, and perhaps we'll get Mr. Hagerman to issue a press release jointly between the municipality and Dr. Gao. Be a good idea. Councillor Rowley?
I just want to kind of echo what Councillor Tadman said to me, too. This is a good news story. Compliments to not only Dr. Gao, but our staff in organizing this, and now that we have it together. Good news for Brighton.
Hear, hear. Well done. Councillor Anderson?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, isn't this nurse practitioner working for Dr. Gao and servicing a number of patients, taking on a patient list rather than giving prescriptions out for anybody?
That is correct, and they would be giving prescriptions out to their patients, which I think is what Councillor Tadman intended, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the intention is to take on the most critical patients that have been orphaned by the departure of the three doctors who recently left. Yeah. Councillor Bateman?
I just want to echo what Councillor Tadman said. My wife being an NP at CFB Trenton, I understand the full scope of what they can and can't do, and this is long overdue, and more communities should jump on board.
And we're going in the right direction, I think. Anything further? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Our next bylaw is with regard to a lease agreement with Dr. Gao, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Tadman, second by Councillor Bateman. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a lease agreement between Dr. Aaron Gao and the municipality of Brighton for space leased at the Brighton Health Services Centre. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And our final bylaw is with regard to the engaging an engineering design services for the reconstruction of Addison Street, Napoleon Street, and Sanford Street. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute an agreement between the corporation of the municipality of Brighton and Engage Engineering. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you. Just not seeing a report here. I'm assuming this has come out of budget and that we're moving forward to get this engineering done so that we can begin reconstruction.
Mr. Castleman.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This is one of three RFPs that I've approved. They're within the $100,000 limit, and they have been budgeted in 2019. If you recall, we had approved $328,000 to do pre-engineering so that we would have projects shovel-ready. Well, this is the third RFP that has been approved by myself over the course of the last month or so. So we're trying to get three projects ahead of the game, so when funding becomes available, we'll be ready to go.
Go ahead.
Just have a little clarification then on the $100,000 approval. So we will see these bylaws then and not necessarily receive a report from staff for these ideas?
That's exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor LeBlanc.
Through you, Mayor, I thought that, just wait a minute here, the design of Sanford Street, I thought they were not to be shovel-ready, not for the past, but they're to be done this year.
So what we saw in the budget was the reconstruction of Sanford Street for 2020. But what this is the engineering design, which will prepare for that process for 2020.
Is that correct?
You don't have to ask him if that's correct. Wouldn't lie to you, Doug. Is there anything else? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried. And we'll move into reports of advisory committees of council, reports and minutes, and council reports. Our first is a recommendation from the Rural Advisory Committee, and it's moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that council receive or support the recommendation from the Rural Advisory Committee that Old Wooler Road west of Lord Road be prioritized for resurfacing and rebuilding. Councillor Bateman, are we receiving or are we supporting?
I'd like to receive.
Councillor Anderson, are you okay with receiving this?
Of course, I think that's a good idea. We should hear a little more from...
Well, I will need what...
Okay, we'll receive.
Okay.
Let's just get it done.
So the motion is that council receive the recommendation. It's moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson. I presume we're getting an update here so we can have a discussion on this. So I will open the floor for discussion. Yeah. Mr. Parkinson. Are you going to tell us this is already contemplated for 2020?
Yes, I am. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just passed out a copy of our 7-year surface treating program that includes each of our surface treating roads. And Old Wooler Road from Kennedy Road 30 to Lord Road is on for reconstruction this year.
Well, that works out just fine then, doesn't it? Anything further? Councillor Tadman.
No, Mayor, but you know that we always get one of these, and then we file it under you know what. But may I suggest that we keep it handy, because sometimes when things like this come up, it's already being attended to, and it's very good to have for those who represent the Rural Advisor or any other. So I recommend you put it on your fridge or someplace.
I would recommend you put it in front of whatever computer you use to respond to emails.
Yes.
And keep it there as a resource. And then, yeah, there you go. Make photocopies for everyone, Doug. That'd be great. But if you do hand it out, which of course you can, it's a public document, do remind everyone that things are a rolling target. And, you know, when we get to 2021 or 2023, things may change as roads degrade over time. Yeah. So we've experienced in Brighton. Is there anything further? Would you like to change receive to support? You're fine there. All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. And our next item is a recommendation from the Brighton Digital Archives Advisory Committee. It's moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that council receive the recommendation from the Brighton Digital Archives Advisory Committee that the Committee of the Whole consider the committee budget as amended. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. There are no reports or minutes of statutory committees, boards, or external agencies, so we move into correspondence, direction items, endorsements, and communications and petitions. The first is from the York Road Women's Institute, and it's moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that council proclaim the week of February 17th to the 22nd, 2020 as Women's Institute Week, and flag raising at the Municipal Centre for the week. Is there any discussion? Councillor Cadman.
Just the fact that we do this every year, and they're a great organization, and they work well with council and the community and do lots of good things.
They do, and they're a very active women's institute as well. All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. Madam Clerk will work with the Director of Parks and Rec to make sure that we have, very well, thank you. The next is from the Township of South Frontenac and Township of Warwick. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council receive the resolution from the Township of Warwick concerning enforcement for safety on family farms. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. And we move into FYI correspondence. First piece of correspondence is from Jean Parker concerning 2020 flooding policy, and it's moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, second by Councillor Rowley. The Council receive the correspondence from Jean Parker concerning 2020 flooding policy. Is there any discussion? Councillor LeBlanc.
You, Chair, she's in here, but where she wrote her first email, in this email, she says that no councillor responded or went to her property. I'd like to know that I went there personally, and there's nobody living in the house. She's not there to go visit and to look at her problem with the first email she sent. Then when she said she got no response, I was there to respond. Just let you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. Anything further? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. The next correspondence is from Tim Norse regarding shoreline flooding, and it's moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The Council receives a correspondence from Tim Norse regarding shoreline flooding. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Doug, are you trying to sign in my spot here? 10.3 is the County of Northumberland updates, moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley. The Council received for information Northumberland County updates, January 10th, 2020. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on the retirement of Warden John Logal. I don't know if there's any protocol or any policy here regarding communicating to folks like that who retired. I was wondering if maybe the municipality of Brighton could send a best wishes or congratulations on your retirement note to Mr. Logal.
I did that through my office on behalf of council.
Okay.
And also to Mayor Latchford, welcoming her as mayor of Alma-Calder on behalf of council.
That's great then. Thank you very much.
Anything else? Councillor LeBlanc.
Through your Chair, 2 points on this one. The last one is that the county is looking for people to participate in a high-speed internet and broadband. And I don't know how we get this out to the community. People could get there and get on this out in the rural community. The second point is the budget in the county. And I don't think I want to discuss it here. We'll discuss it at a later date. Thank you.
And for your information with regard to the budget at the county, it was not passed. I think I mentioned that at another meeting, or maybe in an update, I don't recall. But it is going to be discussed at a more micro level through 2 meetings next week.
Are those meetings open to the public?
Yes, they are.
Could you forward the dates and times?
I can just tell you what they are. It's Wednesday morning from about 9 till noon. And then Thursday afternoon from 1 till 5-ish.
Next week.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Are the public allowed to ask questions at these?
No, it's not the public session. It's very much like our committee of the whole budget discussions. It's for council. But you're welcome to send questions to the CAO or to me or to the warden.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything further? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. And now we enter into question period. If anyone from the gallery has any questions with regard to an item that was on tonight's agenda, you may step forward and ask your question. You have to come to the microphone. We're recorded, Brenda.
Good evening. As a orphan of Dr. Bishop, is this nurse practitioner there now with Dr. Gao?
And for the record, that's Brenda Richardson asking that question. Go ahead, Mr. Castleman.
March 1st.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Do we have to be a patient of Dr. Gao? No way.
No, I think are you not taken up through Healthcare Connect? Do you know?
Well, I'll have to find that out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether there's an automatic transfer from the Larmer Bishop group or whether it's through Healthcare Connect. Yeah.
I was Bishop, and I was told by the receptionist there that either we deroster or when he closes his, he's going to deroster us. So I have to...
Did you register on Healthcare Connect?
I'm trying to get my prescriptions filled first.
So I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah, you bet. Anything else? Take a 10-minute recess before going into You ready? Ready, Madam Clerk? So it's 8:12 p.m. I'll call the meeting back to order with a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that Council resolve itself into closed session February 3rd, 2020 at 8:12 p.m. pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239(2)(b), discussion regarding committee reconfiguration, and C, discussion regarding the sale of land in the Brighton Industrial Park. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, second by Councillor LeBlanc, that Council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Council meeting held on February 3rd, 2020. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion's carried.
So before you all leave...
do you want me to adjourn first? You do want me to adjourn first? Did you get agreement from them, or do they know they're moving this? I have Councillors LeBlanc and Rowley. Are you okay with moving adjournment? So I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, second by Councillor Rowley, that Council meeting February... That's not even English, Candace. That the Council meeting of February 3rd, 2020 adjourn at 8:55 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried.